Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you today?
I'm doing fine.
Thank you so much. May I ask you to please tell us your name?
My name is David Rankin.
Okay. And will you share something about yourself that help us get to know you a little bit better?
Sure. Well, I was born and raised right here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. My family has been here for multiple generations, all the way back to my grandparents. I went to a Hampton Institute, which is now called Hampton University. I started doing computers probably in junior high school. Back in the this is a long time ago when computers were, the old Apple II computers. So this is before the Commodore 64. So I've been doing computing since 1974, 75. It was a hobby. I've always liked technology.
Mhm.
I used to like work on radios and stuff because my dad did that. He had an electronic shop in the back of our house, and he would work on radios and TVs and refrigerators and air conditioners. People would bring stuff over for him to fix it. Anyway, so I've always liked technology. I went to Hampton, and I bet I was the only person on that campus that had a computer in his room.
Wow.
Yeah, I had in 1980. I had a TRS 80 color computer, and
Mhm.
people would come by. I lived off campus to see the computer, and so even before I got into computing professionally, it was like my hobby. I love to play games, and that's probably what got me into computing was games.
Mhm.
Back in those days, games were like Pac-Man,
Right.
but there was this one game that I loved. It was called Battle Zone. It was like a three-dimensional arcade game,
Yeah.
and I loved that game. And I met some guys at the math of course, they didn't have computer science at Hampton back in those days. I met some guys in the math department, and they said they had a computer. And I'm like, well, I want to see that. And so went to the basement of the math building, and sure enough, they had a computer terminal. The computer wasn't even at Hampton. The computer, I think, was over at William and Mary. So and I was so disappointed because I didn't see any games where I thought were games. I got I don't know how I got to log in because I wasn't a math major, but I got to log in, and I started looking at the directories of things, and I saw this one thing that piqued my interest. It was called Star Trek. Well, that got me right there because I loved Star Trek,
Yep.
but it was like it was a green screen game.
Right.
I bet I played that game for 2 or 3 years. Anyway, but that's that. So computing. I got to computing because I loved it. It was my hobby, and when I got to school and went to journalism, and I realized, you know what, I don't like this. I still had my hobby, so I actually went and got one of my first jobs. I never forget it. I was home, living with my mom, and I was looking at the Village Advocate here in Chapel Hill, and there was a job for a programmer, right? And I had, with my TRS 80 computer, I had written, back in those days, didn't have the internet and stuff like that. You had to go get books on how to write programs. So I wrote myself games
Yeah.
that I would play. And you know what? You type them in and they never run right. And so I had to learn how to debug them. So I taught myself how to code. Anyway, so so I saw this job as a programmer, and I went to it, and I got there, and I saw this guy coming out of the building, and I said, "Hey, um, I came here to interview, to apply for the programming job." He says, "Oh, we've already closed that job," and I must have been, I don't know, 22 years old. It's 1982, 1983, and I was bold enough at that time to say, "You haven't seen my program yet." And I guess I must have caught him off guard. He said, okay. So I actually had some code that I had printed out, and I
Mhm.
showed this program I was working on that was like Star Wars, right?
Mhm.
And he gave me the job. But that was my first programming job. Anyway, so that's how I got into it. And
And what do you do now?
Well, right now I'm the assistant dean for information technology at the School of Dentistry here at UNC. And so my career, I've gone from being very, 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 very technical to very, 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 very managerial. And I have learned over this journey that uh, being a technology manager is a skill set in itself.
It sure is. So we weren't far apart. I was the IT director for the School of Medicine at Chapel Hill for 5 or 6 years.
Wonderful.
And I think we and I talked about this before. Some of my old cohorts is there. Others have moved on. Jim Kitchen.
Hmm.
Everybody. I just
Yeah.
love to hear him say his name, Jim
Jim
Kitchen.
Kitchen.
No,
Oh,
he
yeah, I
pronounced every
remember that.
syllable in his name, right?
I
Uh,
know.
you
I
know,
know. He
and
was a wonderful man.
yes,
He
he
really
is.
was. And
Yes, he is. And I will tell
uh,
you, it was always so good to see him because he would always have a joke for me, always something to make me feel uncomfortable, not anything, perverse or anything, but just something you would leave you thinking, what the hell did he just say to me? So I love Jim,
you
so it's
know,
really, really a good time. And
those guys, I remember, Jim
Jim Gogan.
Gogan, those guys, those were special guys, and that was a special time.
Yes, it was. Really was.
Eh,
We that so all the schools and then Central IT at UNC, we were the first consortium to work with MCNC to bring fiber to our campus because, as you know, UNC was built back there in World War I or something like this. So
Yeah,
all the buildings were old. We had to redo the risers, put in new technology. There's so much to do, and it was a wonderful time to be
it
in
was.
technology, but I'll do you a little bit better. So I got a scholarship to go to Columbia University when I graduated from high school in my rural
Wow.
country town in South Carolina. So, all my family lives in New York, but I grew up in the rural South, right? So I'm walking toward the campus, leery of strangers as all get out, right? And so this kind of heavy set white man approached me with a brochure in his hand, and he says, "Hey, we're trying to bring Negroes into computing." I looked at him because those were two words. I didn't even know what either one of those words meant. What do you mean Negro? Because I know the other word, not the one that ended in the O, but the one that ended in the ER, right? So, I looked, okay, what the hell is a Negro? And then computing, what the hell is that, right? So I just kept walking because I feel just one of them crazy New Yorkers, right? So I just kept walking. And then he said, "Hey, and I'll pay you $30,000 a year." I was 17 years old. I have never looked back since. And so, as you talk about the managerial piece of computing, I think that's probably the hardest part is managing people. As you can imagine, most of the people I manage white men who resent the hell out of a black woman telling them what to do or being their boss. So that's been my struggle almost my entire career. So I like technology. I like the way it advanced. I I write and do a lot of talking on emerging technologies and underserved populations because I do
Hmm.
think people aren't ready, but it's going to smack them in the mouth. You better start paying attention because it's coming. But my daughter also went to Hampton. She's
That's wonderful.
class of 2006, I believe. I don't know
Okay.
what it is. Anyway, 2004, I know. But she went to Hampton. She's a Hamptonite too. So all you bougie Hamptoniters, you go ahead on because I call her that every day, just bougie. It's something about y'all who went to Hampton is different from us who went to real historically black colleges. I don't know what Hampton is, but we went to real historically
I
black colleges.
don't know about that
Yes,
now.
we went to real ones. That when y'all went
Uh,
to, y'all had plenty of money. Y'all had lakes and all kinds of stuff like that. There were books in your library and all that stuff. We didn't have that in my historical black college.
oh, that's funny.
So there's that.
That is
And I know you
funny.
don't have all day. So let me just get to the meat and potatoes of this. So tell
Sure.
me the day after May 25th, 2020, the day Mr. Floyd was murdered,
Right.
what was your first thought? Or what did you feel at that moment?
Boy, that's okay. I definitely had some feelings. I saw that happen, and I knew that that could happen to any of us.
Any of us.
And any black man that grew up in the South. And I remember we had focus group sessions at the dental school to talk about how we felt. And most of the time, a survival instinct, I suppose, over the years is just to keep your head down and don't say nothing.
Right.
But something told me to tell a story, and I told them that that growing up as a young boy in the South is hard,
Right.
but you learn how to survive or you won't make it.
Right.
You learn to keep your head down. You learn to keep your mouth shut.
Yep.
You learn to say sir a lot. You
Yes,
learn to keep
sir.
your
No, sir.
hands where people can see them.
Yep.
You learn to go in the store and you know, and don't be picking up nothing unless you're ready to buy it.
Right.
You know, you learn all those things, and people saying black folks understood it immediately.
Immediately. Yep. Because
The
we'd already had
white
400
folks
years
didn't.
of it.
Yeah, yeah. I
Right.
mean, it's you know, but that conversation, I think, was a cat. Then people start talking because they, you know, and some the black moms started to cry because they knew that what I was telling was true.
Yep.
They knew it was true. They knew they had to have that same conversation with their sons.
Yep.
They knew it.
Yep.
You know, so
When President Obama made attorney Holder attorney general, he went on television and told that story. The conversations we have with our sons and our daughters when they leave
mhm,
us. You know, what are the things you need to do to come home safe? And we
that's
still
right.
have that concern yet still today.
I know. And so you asked me what I felt. I saw that and I'm like, that happens all the time. This one on TV.
Right.
That
We got
happens all, and
technology
it's
now.
been and it's been
Smartphones.
happening.
We
Yeah,
got
yeah, yeah, yeah,
smartphones.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I mean, that's been happening since. I mean, when I remember growing up, you know, my daddy, you know, say, "Now, don't be over there across that line when it
Right.
gets dark."
Right.
They tell you straight up.
Right.
Don't you know? You need to come on back home when it get dark. Don't be across
Yep.
Sunset. Don't
Yep.
go over there.
Yep.
You know, Sunset Avenue. Don't cross over there because
Yep.
you know you'll get you know, and you know I grew up in the '60s, in the late '60s, early '70s, and it was still an issue. I'm sure that when he grew up, it was even worse.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that when my granddaddy grew up, it was even worse than that.
Right.
So now, is it better? Well, yeah, but there's still a lot of danger and risk out there, and that's the physical risk. There's still a lot of emotional stuff. You know, there's workplace stuff. That stuff really does happen. You know, and if folks think it doesn't, I suppose it's kind of hard to to understand a person unless you are them. You know, to look through the world through their eyes. So I suppose they say, well, it looks fine to me. And but I'm like, yeah, well, I'm still gonna keep my head down. I'm still keep my mouth shut. I still keep my hands where people can see them. I still gonna say yes, sir, yes, ma'am.
But that has to be taxing, right? So you are an adult black man, a successful black man, a
Hmm.
powerful black man, and you still have to stay in your lane. You still have to
Yep.
have these rules of conduct to get home safely to your family every night. And
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times, people describe black people, and I think more women than men, but we are angry. And if you think about how often we are repressed, right? You can't just say what you want to say. And I'll tell you my UNC story. So when I was UNC, they were thinking about merging the health system with the physicians and assistants, and associates. There was so much work to be done in that. And at the time, I was in my early 40s, no college degree, just years and years and years and years of experience. And my boss was a very lauded, decorated, he had an MD and a PhD, and he knew informatics, he knew it all, going backwards, forward, and sideways. And so when I was invited to this meeting with all these alphabet soup men, the only black woman in the room, and so my role was to tell them, could we take the School of Medicine's IT system and integrate it into the health system and do it fiscally reasonably? And being who I am, I can't help myself, I guess. No, you can't do that. It's not going to work. It's not, you can do it, but it's going to take you years. It's going to take, because, the UNCP&A had their own way of doing things, the way they like to get paid, the way things worked in their system, and the health system had theirs. And I will never forget, after I did my presentation, research, been working on this for almost a whole year, finding all the data, every hole I could find, because they weren't going to believe me right out of the gate, right? So I had to have this massive presentation. And so when I finished, the man in the room with the most alphabets behind his name, I think he had 52. I don't, there were only 26, but I think he had 52 alphabets behind his name.
52 alphabets.
He looked me dead in my eye and he said to me, "Who are you to tell me this can't work?" And it was one of those moments where I realized that my voice was always going to be questioned. My decisions were always going to be questioned. It was never going to be trusted that I knew what I was talking about or that I was in the right place. And so with the death of Mr. Floyd, I think that, a lot of white people like said, well, we've got COVID, we have more time to read and look at TV and all this stuff. James Byrd in Texas in 1990 something else, I can't remember what the year is exactly. Somebody tied him to the back of a pickup truck.
Oh yeah, drug him around.
Until they decapitated him. We're not talking about these rare incidents. These things have been happening and happen all the time.
Oh yes.
As a Black professional, you're at a predominantly white institution. I'm at a predominantly white institution. You're often muted. You can't be yourself. And to me, the work that I do, and I don't know what you do in your, but my work is to help the people that look like me navigate that institution and navigate the relationships with others, because the struggle is that we know what's right and wrong, but we also know that we don't have enough power share to mandate the right and wrong, so we go out, we hire a diversity officer, no power whatsoever, just attack. We've done it. We are diverse now. We have a diversity officer who can make very little changes to the way the organization works. So they check that box off. They hire a Black man or a Black woman, they can check that box off. But in reality, this is just talk, so when are we going to get to the meat and potatoes of action, right? When are we going to get to the point where we're doing something, and one of my other parts, I don't know if you share this, but like trusting white people to do and be who they say they are, right? So when you are there with them, you are having a wonderful conversation, you're laughing and joking, but what are they saying about you when you leave? Because they're not advocating for you to advance. They're not advocating for you to get ahead, but yet still they're laughing at you, patting you on the back, saying, "Oh, great job," telling you how wonderful you are and reminding you that they have Black friends. You go home at the end of the day thinking, what the hell just happened to me today? So Mr. Floyd was definitely a turning point, but I don't think it should have had the weight that it did because this has been going on for so long.
Oh yeah, that again, you're right. I mean, if you use the internet and find these, things that happen like that, I'll bet hundreds of them probably happen a year.
Right.
And those are the ones that are documented.
Right.
And luckily, I mean, now because cell phones and with cameras are so ubiquitous, people can catch them. People catch people doing bad things.
Right.
All the time.
Yeah.
So no, you're exactly right. Exactly right.
Plus, I developed this course. I've been trying to teach everywhere, but I'm not making very much headway. What is an old Black woman like me? No. But my course focuses on gender, poverty, and race through the lens of emerging technologies. And I talk to people about this all the time. Like these things are coming fast. I mean, like my growing up, where I grew up in the rural South, my mother didn't trust banks. Her money was either in her bra or on her mattress. It wasn't going in no bank. No, she wasn't doing that, And there's still a lot of legacy beliefs about institutions, regardless to what your race or gender is, right? So when fintech becomes a thing, financial technology becomes a thing, i.e., there's no more cash, Bitcoin and blockchain are going to be the entire way that money is done. Where's that going to leave Black people? Because we are the largest group, Black and brown people are the largest group that are under or unbanked in the world. We don't have the economic power and wealth that others do. So all of these emerging technologies that are coming, I don't think we're prepared for. And I'll tell you a perfect example. I don't know if you go to Sam's, but Sam's one of my favorites. I think I have a personal affection for Sam. Whenever I can get in there, I feel good because I can buy such big, bulky things.
Oh, Sam's Club. Yeah, I don't belong to Sam's Club.
You should join. But anyway, nonetheless, these places are moving to cashierless things. So you open up the Sam's app on your phone, you scan the item, you get your QR code, put it up there and walk out the door. You don't have to see a person. But when you look around, the people that work there, they're Black and brown. So when these emerging technologies like cashierless societies, and everybody wants one, right? who's going to be displaced. And this is why I think we really need to keep having these conversations, not just about the death of Black and brown people, but also about what these things that are coming and how they're going to be displaced. McKinsey wrote, I think in 2017 or 2018, that by 2030 or 2050, I can't remember which one it is, the majority of jobs that we see can be replaced or automated. And think about what that had meant if companies had started that pre-COVID. The financial hardships a lot of these companies are under, they wouldn't be there because the robot isn't going to catch COVID. It might be programmed poorly. Maybe they need you to write some real code for them, but the robot isn't going to get sick and die or need to apply for unemployment or whatever, right?
Mhm.
So we need to start thinking about these things, especially as people of color, and we need to start collaborating with each other in ways that help us bring this to the forefront. We don't need to have any more talks about this. We don't need to have, we need to have actions that we're really thinking about what this may mean for our communities. Because one thing we all know is true: when I'm hungry and I don't have any other way to get money or get to take care of my family, crime is going to grow up. And this is not now just going to be Black and brown crime. It's going to be universal crime because lots of people are going to be in this place, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
so where do we go from here? How do we start the conversation with those that come behind us?
That's a serious discussion right there.
Yeah.
It is. That is a very serious discussion.
Yeah. And I think that that so fintech and biometrics is one, but I don't know if you have one. I don't have one, but have you called Alexa and asked her to order you some eggs or to walk the dog or to turn your lights off? All of these things are out
Yeah,
there, and
that's
people,
true.
the Internet of Things, great. Everybody loves IoTs and all that stuff, but the point is we're not recognizing what's happening with these things. There are jobs that are going to be lost, right? There is data that's going to be breached. You got all of these things out
That's
there,
true.
and I'll give you this one good example. So the Equifax breach a couple of years ago. So none of us are customers of Equifax. We do not have a
No,
relationship,
no.
individual relationship with Equifax. We have a relationship with our financial institution, and our financial institution has a relationship with Equifax, but we don't.
That's
But that
true.
breach affects us directly. And so
Yes, it did.
Equifax offered everyone that was breached a year of credit watch or whatever you want to call it. And Black people, brown people, so few, I think it's something like 21% took advantage of it because they didn't know what it is. And we're not educating our community and our people enough to understand what's coming. And while, I don't think it's anybody's job but our own to do this, we must find a way to get that information out there because we still are struggling with, skin tones, light skin versus dark skin, good hair versus bad hair.
Yeah,
And
that's
this is
true.
this is old nonsense. We don't even need to be thinking about this, but somehow or another, this still carries weight in our community. We're still competitive. Black women compete with each other. Got to get some hair and some nails and all that stuff right there. It's just things that we should be not thinking about anymore. We should be focusing on where this future is going to take us, and what does it mean for our children. The place where you work at, right? So how much does it cost to get a dental degree so that I can become a licensed dentist, right? When you got that kind of debt on your back, how
Yeah,
do you get around?
yeah.
So these are the kind of conversations we should be having within our communities and with each other to help find a pathway to the other side. And I'll say this one last thing. Charlie Nelms and I did a chat. I don't know if you know who he was, but he was a former chancellor of Central. He and I did a
Mhm.
chat, maybe a month or so ago, and he said, "We are them. If you're waiting on somebody to come, we are them." And that's really, really poignant because we are. We have to help ourselves. There is no waiting for a Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or whomever. We are them. We've got to help ourselves.
I would not disagree with that at all.
Exactly. So I can't
Yeah.
wait to hear your plan. We're gonna have to have this a chat another time. So you can tell me about your plan and how this is gonna work. So we can move it around. But I'm very grateful for this time to speak with you, and it's certainly very good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time, and I
It
know
has
that
been
you're
a
doing
while.
well. You
I
know,
appreciate the opportunity. It was fun. It was a walk down memory lane. We talked about some people that we both know.
yeah,
It made me feel good. And you said some things that really hit home. They were very, very real to me. So I appreciate the conversation as well.
Absolutely. And I hope you'll chat with me again. I realize you're busy, but sometime after the start of the first year, we can chat some more. And I can tell
Sure.
you about my obsession with Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, or writing
It's so funny.
assembler
Yeah.
F or assembler H. You probably didn't go anywhere near that.
I have come, boy, I could tell you some stories about a similar language back in the day. But anyway, yeah, I've come so far from the guy that played Pac-Man and Battlezone. I
Uh-huh.
mean, so I feel very fortunate, and I'm very happy to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you too very much, and I hope we can chat again, and you have a little bit more time for me. I realize how busy you are, but I hope you will chat with me again, and we can
No
kind of
problem.
explore these issues, and think about how can we help our communities. So I really think it's really important for people who are in positions of leadership to think about this, for those who may not be in a position or may not be have all the tools to think about it, to have these
That's a
kind of
good point.
conversations. So
Good point.
I look forward to talking to you further about this. As soon as the video converts, I'll send you a link. You can listen to it. Tell me if I may upload it, and stay in touch and let me know how you're doing, and if there's something I can do to help you.
Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely. So have a great long weekend, rest,
Okay.
and get ready for the Home Alone Christmas holiday.
Thank you so much.
Hey, take care, David.
All
Good
right.
to talk to you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.